Coming to you from the M&M Exterior Studio in Knoxville, Virginia, this is Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle, the introvert's extrovert. She talks to people so you don't have to. For now.
Welcome back to Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle, the introvert's extrovert. I'm here with my podcast sponsor, Matt Jennings, one half of my podcast sponsor of M&M Exteriors.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm here as a representative of the whole. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I'm talking to the other M to get Melody in here too. So
yeah, that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge.
Oh my God,
I think
I am up for the challenge. Thank you for coming today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I do feel a fair amount of pressure being the first non-female guest.
Yes, the first man. I feel like we need a lot of background music, like bum, bum, bum. I don't know.
Is that what men sound like?
I don't know. It just feels like, I know that sounded actually a little like, well, I am excited, but yeah, I don't know. It feels like, I don't know. So yes, first man, first sponsor. So thank you for not only coming on the show, but willing to sponsor me when I had just a dream in my heart and no clue what I was doing.
You had some clue.
I had a little bit of clue.
Yeah, no, I mean, you had a good idea, I thought. And
Thank you.
I think it's blossomed into something really good.
Thank you. Do you remember what you said? Because I've quoted you a lot when we had our breakfast meeting, and you said, I feel like a movie producer.
I did feel like a movie producer, yeah.
Except, do you remember what you said about me? Or should I say what you said?
Go ahead. I don't remember what I said. I'm sure I meant it at the time.
You did. It was very good. You said, I feel like if I were a movie producer and you were pitching a movie to me, you're saying things like, well, there'll be scenes and there'll be dialogue and that's my movie.
I do kind of remember that now. It was a little vague.
It was so vague. Yeah.
You kind of honed in on it.
Yeah.
And that was...
You challenged me. You said, are you going to go home and like write this down and create an outline? Or are you going to let it fizzle out? And so 3 days later, I shoved an outline in your face.
You did. Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah. So thank you.
Episode, what is this? 9? 10?
No. This will be 12. Episode 12.
Yeah. The Dirty Dozen.
Dirty Dozen. Yes. I love it. So without you, we might not even be here.
Well, I don't. You would have found a way. But
thank you.
But whatever small part I played, I was happy to.
You played a great big part because you, and actually that ties into what we're chatting about today because you are a roofing contractor.
That's correct.
Roofing, siding, gutters. You're a licensed general contractor, but your previous life, you were a lawyer.
Yeah. Recovering lawyer. I like to say. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what, I don't think I knew that about you. So when we got together for our breakfast meeting, I had asked you at another meeting we were at, I said, hey, do you want to sponsor my podcast? And you turned around and said, sure. And
Absolutely.
I was like,
yeah.
Cool. Okay. So when we met to kind of discuss it, I thought we were just going to discuss like, I don't know, what you wanted to sponsor. And you asked me all of these questions. And suddenly it became clear that you had the mind of a lawyer.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to take that.
Analytical, detail-oriented, good things, all good things. I don't have a negative connotation
Yeah, I think
of lawyers.
so. I mean, the lawyers think a certain way. It's what law school teaches you more than anything is how to think like a lawyer.
Yeah.
And that is something that even in recovery all these years.
It still gets you.
So, yeah. You never really turn that off. But I don't really want to turn that part off.
Yeah, exactly. Because that probably serves you well. So give everyone just a quick background maybe of who you are, where you come from, whatever kind of quick biography.
Yeah. Let's see. Wow. How far back do you want to go?
Well,
I was born in Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah, birthplace of my cousins.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, my uncle and aunt still live there.
Really?
My cousin, yeah.
My parents are there. They're across the river in
Council Bluffs,
Iowa. Yeah, that's where I grew up. Yeah.
So Council Bluffs, I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, went to college at Iowa State. Went to law school at the University of Iowa. Moved from there to practice law in Kansas City, Missouri. which is, if you grow up in Iowa and you don't want to go somewhere else, people go one of a handful of places for the most part.
Where do they go?
Twin Cities.
Twin Cities
is a big destination. Chicago is a big destination.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City is another one. Denver, maybe.
That's where one of my cousins is in Denver.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
makes
but
sense.
Those other three are probably the primary. Yeah. And if you went to the University of Iowa, you're from Chicago anyway, so you just wind up going back there.
Oh.
That's my little dig at all the Hawkeye fans listening.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because I know we have a big Hawkeye
I imagine.
base.
I imagine. Well, it's going to be big one of these days when everybody's listening to your podcast.
Yes. We got to get those digs in for the greater, we should tell every guest, who do you really want to give a dig at? Get him in.
There you go.
This is your chance.
Yeah,
the spotlight's on you.
Yeah.
So when I met you, you're rolling in. You and Melody have a contracting business here in Northern Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting. Midwest guy, and she's from Midwest too.
She's from Columbia, Missouri, where
Yep.
the University of Missouri is. Yeah, we met in Kansas City.
So you got these two Midwesterners, and I have Midwestern blood, my parents being from South Dakota. Why the heck are you here in Virginia?
Yeah.
And I kind of, when we met, that's the kind of the story you told me was kind of the roofing background. But then now that I've found out this whole lawyering life, recovering, I'm like, okay, I think we need to dig deeper into that. Because
yeah. I mean, it's not something I like to talk about or tell people.
Why not?
No, I'm kidding.
I'm like, great.
Well,
that's the end of the podcast. Thanks for joining us, people.
To be honest, sometimes I don't like to tell people.
Yeah.
Just because there is this sort of, people think they don't like lawyers. It's one of those professions that everybody thinks they don't like lawyers until they need one.
Yeah, of course.
And then their lawyer, they want to be the biggest jerk ever, right?
Oh, yeah. Well,
but,
they want him to be the best.
Yeah, right. So
maybe that's because I don't
and
have
I get a lot of looks, too. I mean, I get, I was thinking about this. I get a lot of sort of quizzical, like, why in the world would you give up practicing law and now you're a grubby roofing contractor? Like what, I think it's one of those professions that, people maybe aspire to or whatever, doctors, lawyers, whatever. And so like, if you're doing that, why would you ever not do that?
Yeah.
Or whatever?
Well, that was,
the only people who understand are other lawyers.
Yeah.
They don't look at me funny at all. Most of them are like, oh, good for you.
Yeah. They're like, good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
No, but, one of our past guests, Jacqueline Rodriguez, she went into architecture. Like she was going to go into pursue architecture. And even though she didn't finish, it's a little bit of a different story. But that was the whole thing, is when she left and decided, yeah, this isn't for me. Everyone's like, why would you not do that? But like, it's not where her heart was. It was kind of slowly miserable. And I think that's why I thought this could be of value to people, because one, hearing other people's stories, I say often, helps us kind of find, I don't know, just insight into our own life. And even though not everyone can relate to being a lawyer, I think that most people can relate to doing something and finding themselves at a place where they're like, crap, this is not where I want to be. But there's that fear of change. And so when you meet someone, like, that's why for me, when I meet someone that does that, I'm like, holy moly, I want to know, like, how did you get from A to B? Because most people don't want to rock the boat, make a big change. So, like, what was it about your story? And like I said, that way it's like giving other people that insight of like, what the heck?
Yeah. I mean, I went to law school for a lot of reasons, and I'm glad that I did. Mm-hmm. And the primary reason being that my dad was a lawyer, right? And he was one of these, maybe this is common with lawyers, I don't know. But when people tell me sometimes, or people, kids even, they don't really know what their parents do for a living or whatever.
Yeah.
I always find that bizarre, because my dad talked about being a lawyer and his work and everything all the time. Right.
Oh.
I was always at his office when I was a kid, playing at the secretary's desk while he was dictating whatever, because I used to do that back then.
Oh.
No one really dictates anymore, I don't think. He had a dictaphone and the whole thing. Yeah.
This is a great
It's just
follow-up
a funny
to our
word.
last
Yeah, it's just a funny word.
podcast.
It's not that kind of a, yeah, it's pronounced more exciting than it is. So, and he always, he knew the answers to the things that I was interested in, right? Like he had an understanding of the law, of course, but government, taxes, all these things that are important, but also very, interesting to me.
I like that you added the to me part.
Yeah.
You were like taxes,
Well, even among
laws. It's all stuff that's interesting.
Even among lawyers, tax law is incredibly not popular among lawyers. I mean,
Yeah.
I took federal income tax in law school and loved it. I loved it. And I was like the only person who did.
my
A
gosh.
few people took it because they felt like they needed to or whatever, but no one was into it like I was. I loved it.
Why were you into it?
I don't know. It's just me. I don't know. I can't explain
Numbers, like kind of the way systems work.
It's kind of the
or-
intersection of law and finance in a way, but
Okay.
the rules about what's taxed and why, and
the stuff where my brain shuts off.
Yeah,
Your
I mean,
brain is like,
you've
interesting.
seen the movie The Firm,
Yeah.
right?
Tom Cruise.
And their whole thing is trying to figure out ways for people to defer the amount of tax they pay and stuff like that, all legally.
I don't remember
that part
all
was
of that.
legal.
I was
anyway.
like, I think that
Yeah.
had to do with Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
and
you
there
don't
was
remember that
some-
part probably, but
Yeah,
that's what they
seriously.
do. And there's a couple famous scenes, not famous scenes, there's a couple scenes in it that I remember very strongly.
because
where they
of tax
talk about
law.
that. So yeah. If you're a tax law geek, that's probably the one movie. that
Now
I
I'm
can
going to want to
think
go
of.
watch it now.
Yeah, well,
That's so
next time
cool.
you watch The Firm,
I will think of you and your
watch
tax
for that.
law.
Yeah.
So you got in. So you started going down the path of
Yeah, so
following
I-
in your dad's footsteps.
Yeah, I mean, my undergraduate degree, I actually wound up getting. It was kind of, I don't know why I did this exactly. Maybe it was my dual personality or something, but I wound up getting 2 degrees. I got one in English and one in business finance.
Do you know I'm an English major too?
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
it was a good combination in a
Yeah.
lot of ways for law school. I knew I didn't really want to go to business school. I
Yeah.
didn't see a ton of
Ironic.
value in that for me. And-
Ironic now that you run a business.
well, yeah, but I mean, I think this probably isn't fair, right? But I think business school has the most value to people that don't have a business background. I think if your undergraduate
yeah.
degree is in
That's-
business,
yeah.
it's going to be,
That's a fair, yeah.
a little bit repetitive, more in depth, of course.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
even though my interest was really more business and finance and investing and all those kinds of things.
Do you think had
So-
you not, so because I know the end of the story, although you're really not at the end of your story, you're just in the middle of it, but because I know that you left law school, I wonder, had you gone back then not pursuing this law thing, would you have done business and finance and all that?
If I could go back now,
Yeah.
no, I think I would still go to law school.
Okay.
I mean, I'm glad that I went, and I'm glad that these mysteries that I always wanted to understand when I was a kid, that they got unlocked for me.
So cool.
Also, I was always a good student because I was smart, but I
Yeah.
was never a diligent, hardworking student,
Yes.
ever. In fact, my college GPA, whatever, probably held me back from going to a even bigger name law school
Yeah.
because my essay or my LSAT score was good enough to get into wherever.
Yeah.
But
you spent too
my
much
college
time.
GPA indicated to the admissions people that I was not going to apply myself.
You did a lot of
Probably. Yes.
Friday after class happy hours.
Yeah, and
Thursday after class.
I was not a big drinker in college actually, but I found a lot of other things to do.
Yeah,
than-
movies like watching The Firm
Yeah.
all night.
I didn't really
get
get serious about like my GPA until I was about a junior, and by then you've got 2 years worth of
yeah.
you got to pull up. So
2
anyway,
years of binging The Firm.
the other thing So the other thing that law school did for me, I was an excellent law student. I worked very, very hard at it, and did very well. It's by far the hardest I've ever studied, most I've learned, best I've performed grades wise since elementary school or whatever, high school. So it taught me that too. But
Yeah.
what law school taught me more than anything was how to learn anything.
Oh yeah.
Because it's a completely different language. First of all, you have to understand all the massive vocabulary and the precise meanings of those things. And then each area of the law is its own different thing.
Yeah.
So there overlap, and there's principles that are all kind of, throughout the law. But if you're going to take a criminal law class or negotiable instruments, I mean, they're just like, they couldn't be more different, right?
Yeah.
So
you were able to
so
figure
you
out.
learn how to
Yeah.
learn those things, and law school doesn't teach you. You
so
teach
you-
yourself in law school.
Oh, it's like, yeah, it reminds me. So when you were a kid, I feel like, and our kids are in elementary school, we were just at their orientation. I remember after a few years realizing every year they tell me, you're not going to get spoon-fed next year the way you are this year.
Yeah.
And after a few years, I was like, I hear that every year. So I'm kind of learning that like every year's the same. It really, they're here to help you. There's teachers. So I feel like, college kind of.
Anybody who's been to law school would laugh at the idea that the law professors are there to help you.
Yeah.
Because that is, I mean, they are, but that's not.
But it's a whole different realm. It's not.
It's a completely,
Yeah.
I mean, it's Socratic method. Everybody talks about Socratic method, but
what's the Socratic method?
There are no lectures in law school.
Oh, okay.
You read the material beforehand.
Oh.
And you come to class, and the professor calls on you and asks you questions about it.
Oh, dang. So I thought I wanted to go to law school a long time ago. And my friend just went to law school, went back at 40 to law school and did amazing. And I always felt I had the confidence. So when I was young, I had like a lot of confidence. Like I could do I went to Virginia Tech. So I was like, I could do engineering. I do English, but like I could do it. Mm. And I felt like I thought about law school. I could do that. And now hearing you talk about the Socratic method, did I say it right?
Yeah.
That everyone knows about and everyone talks about?
Well, if you're thinking about going to law school or know someone in law school,
yes.
or whatever, I mean.
I should know that. But that confirms that I probably am not meant to do law school because I like to hear lectures and have it taught. So that would be much for me. You're not gonna get that. No, you don't get any answers from the professors. They keep asking you questions until you figure out the answer. But that's the lawyering. That's when my friend's dad, whenever we said he's lawyering you.
The idea behind law school really, it's set up for like 150 years ago when you're the small town lawyer, right? Yeah. And someone comes in and they have some question about something and you have no idea what the answer is.
So you keep asking them questions.
And it's some off-the-wall thing that you've never dealt with and you don't know. Mm-hmm. And so you learn how to figure it out, right?
Yeah. So that's a good skill base to have. So then so let's jump ahead then. So you have this good experience in law school, which it's nice to hear.
Well, no, I had a miserable experience in law school.
Oh, okay.
It's an incredibly unpleasant experience.
Whoa.
Almost anyone who's ever been to law school will tell you how,
it's horrible.
It is.
Yeah.
But I did very well.
Yeah.
And so that was satisfying.
Yes. And you don't regret
it. To get through it and do well.
And I like hearing that because I think that's helpful for people that if you are doing something you might not necessarily love or know if it's your thing, I think having the wisdom to say, hey, even though you're not currently pursuing law, it wasn't wasted time because of the skills you got from it, the experience you got from it. So for whatever anyone's doing, it's never a waste. It's never.
Right.
I mean, that's why everyone always ends up saying, no, I don't regret it because I wouldn't be where I am now.
And I agree with that. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that happened before has brought you to where you are now.
Exactly.
So, I couldn't have gotten here if I hadn't done that. And then, the problem with law school is it used to be 50 years ago even, or maybe even less than that big corporations went and looked for their executives from law schools, right? They don't anymore, really.
Oh, yeah.
It's business school grads or whatever. So even though they tell you go to law school, you can do anything with a law degree. And that's true. But the people that are coming to interview law students and the kind of jobs that you can get and what the career offices, they're all practicing law jobs.
Yeah. And so what was next then after that? Did you go into it thinking you wanted to do the business side?
Absolutely.
Oh, and then it was like, dang, I'm just going to go practice law.
Yeah. I mean, I could have found one of those jobs.
Yeah.
But there's just not I would have had to do it on my own. I would have had to build it on my own, figure out how to find it on my own.
Yeah.
The law school career services, which is a big part of law school.
Yeah.
People do a summer internship, which is a big deal. That's usually the law firm you wind up going to work for. Mm-hmm. So between your second and third year, you go work for them for the summer, and then they hire you and you start when you're finished. All of it revolves around practicing law. So
you got into practicing law. You're practicing. How long did you practice law for in Kansas City?
7 years.
7 years.
A little right at 7 years, actually.
Oh, that's funny. That's like the 7-year itch.
Well, I guess, yeah. I didn't really think of it that way. But.
I don't know. That might not be appropriate. So So what was the how were you like, I'm not happy with this? What was the catalyst?
I have a lot of great stories. Well, let's save it for the after show.
Yeah, save it for the after show. To kind of review some of the nuggets that we've talked about so far is pursuing something you're passionate about, which I think that was good. You were passionate about the law.
Yeah.
You were able to do something, answer those questions.
I wanted to know what lawyers knew. That's what I wanted. That's why I went to law school. I didn't want to be one, really. I didn't want to practice law, really. And I always knew that. I always knew that I didn't really want to practice law, or I figured that out fairly early on. It wasn't really for me.
And what a lot.
So, and I went through a lot in that time. My life, mentioned to you before, but got married right out of law school, moved to Kansas City, practiced law, got divorced, quit practicing law all within the same year or so. And for me, it was kind of a wake up call for myself in terms of I had spent my life up to that point, I think, trying to please everybody else, trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be or thought I should be or what I thought they thought I should be or,
Yeah.
And I had spent very little time thinking about, well, what do I want? Who am I? What do I want to be? I realized that with my marriage that didn't work out or whatever, which just wasn't a good fit for either one of us. Did
leaving your law practice, which came first, your marriage or the leaving? They
were kind of overlapping, but it was mostly I was divorced before I quit practicing law. So that was done and finalized. But I got to a point in my life where I realized through that process, because you do a lot of soul searching when you go through that. I realized that, you know what, I'm going to start living my life more intentionally, if you will. I'm going to try to make a very long story short. I started with this is what we'll get into later. I started doing litigation. I was not cut out for litigation. I don't have the right personality for that. I switched to 100% different type of a practice with a different law firm that was much smaller, and through an evolution of things that I can explain in more detail, but which is actually very interesting. I wound up in a spot in that law firm that just was not working for me. Okay. One of the things about being a lawyer is it all depends on the type of people you're working with. And especially when you're an associate in a law firm, you got to have good partners that you like, respect, that treat you well, that are good people, whatever. Just had a bad fit with the person that I kind of got slotted with. And I kind of went to the firm and said, I can't do, I don't want to work with this person anymore.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever else. You can transfer me around. I can do this. I could do that. I like them. I like this. I can do whatever. But this is not a good fit for me, which was me kind of standing up for myself and whatever in a way that I had not up to that point in my life. I was about to say,
so before that, you just kind of were checking the block.
Would just sort of, take what was given to me or whatever. Yeah. So I kind of made them an offer they couldn't refuse. And they sort of took me up on it where they were like, you know what? You don't want to work with her. There's nowhere else really for you, so we'll see you later.
Oh, snap.
Right. And so it was kind of I gave him an ultimatum, really. So, I always talk about it in terms of, it was a mutual thing.
It was a mutual break. Really. You were like,
if they hadn't made a change, I was going to leave anyway. They just kind of beat me to the punch.
Oh, dang it.
So.
I want to be the one that leaves.
So they let me go. It was like July-ish or August, I can't remember exactly, in 2010, in 9 years. So for the next few years, I had bought a property in Kansas City. It was a residential duplex. It was a foreclosure. Guy that owned it before. This guy had already started to convert it into two. So he took the top floor and bottom floor apartments on each side and made it a first and second floor unit. So instead of being 4 apartments, it was 2. Anyway, he ran out of money, and it was kind of a mess. It was a big mess when I bought it. And my idea was to rehab it, flip it, whatever. And then practicing law thing didn't work out or whatever. And so I worked on that for about 4 years.
Worked on the building?
Yeah. I told you it was a mess, didn't I?
I know.
And I did about 90-something% of the work myself.
Did you live off your savings? Or?
Yes.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
And then you flipped it?
No, I still own it.
You still own it?
Yeah.
So it's a rental property right now, or is it your vacation home?
No, it's a rental.
Nice.
So that was a time in my life, I had done well. I'd practiced law.
Yeah.
Had, money.
Yeah.
And, here you want your next nugget of truth? Here
Yeah,
we
give
go.
me that
All
nugget.
Right. Sometimes you have to invest in yourself.
Oh.
And that's what that time was for me. My friends and family didn't really understand. They thought that I was like, whatever.
Losing it?
But it was kind of I went through that, like, who am I? What do I want to do? Kind of a thing. I thought about going to business school. I actually applied to one, decided it wasn't the right thing for me. Thought about doing a lot of different things, actually. I'm working away on this property.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds like a movie.
Huge projects. I mean, I renovated things that you wouldn't believe. But, met Melody in there.
Yeah.
We wound up living together there.
Oh, at the property.
Yeah. Cool. And she kind of went through a career change too.
Yeah.
Long story.
We'll let her tell that.
But she got involved in roofing.
Yep.
She started before I did. She came from a world of sales. Mm-hmm. And a roofing contractor, was very busy, needed help. Hired her. She went out, was selling roofs to people. And they needed more help. So I came and started working for them too.
So that makes sense because you were in that place of investing in yourself and doing that soul searching while you were working.
And I mean, contracting was something that I'd always been interested in. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've always liked building things, working with my hands, creating things. And among contracting, roofing was particularly attractive to me for a number of reasons. So I had said for years before that if I knew anything about roofing, I would just start a roofing company right now. And lo and behold, it somehow magically happened. Yeah. I mean, it really was a bizarre turn of events.
Well, I mean, based on most of the guests that I've talked to, they would all say that you put that out there and that all the factors worked together. I mean, that's where you can believe in stuff or not. But that's kind of not probably a coincidence that you kind of...
It just kind of worked its way that direction. Yeah.
So you took some risks. They worked out, although there was that season where you didn't know. Then you and Melody both worked for the contractor.
Yeah, so we worked in Kansas City for this company. Unbelievable roofing contractor. They do a tremendous job. We've patterned ourselves largely after them.
That's awesome.
I mean, they were awesome. The problem was it was a family deal. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Dad was the owner. Mom did she was an accountant. She did all the bookkeeping. Son was their big salesperson. Daughter-in-law worked in the office. Sister worked in the office. We were the only ones that weren't part of this little tight-knit family. They'd have office meetings at brunch on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, and we were on the outside looking in, and as is typical, we were getting the short end of the stick, kind of, I mean, they were taking the good stuff and giving us what was left.
Yeah.
So we left there and went to work for another company that's based in Kansas City, but chases hailstorms all over the country. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that brought us out east.
Out here to
and
Virginia.
That's how we wound up in Virginia. And we were here for about 6 months with them. Did really, really well. Had a whole bunch of people calling us. We had a big referral base already. We had all these people that wanted us to do jobs for them. And they packed up, went back to Kansas City. They were done for the year. They come out for a season. Next year, they go to the other, somewhere else that has a big hailstorm. And we were going, wait a minute, we've got, more work here. And they were like, we don't care. We're out of here.
Yeah.
So we looked at each other and said, if we're going to start our own business, maybe we should just move here because look at what we already have. I mean, we had a handful of people who would hire us. They were ready to hire us. So over that winter, we got all prepared and got, set up our LLC, got licensed, got our insurance in place, got all the things that we needed to do to be a contractor, got set up with the suppliers and all that kind of stuff, hired crews and whatever, and just took off like crazy, just way faster than we thought it would.
That's awesome.
I mean, it just was, we knew we were taking a risk.
Yeah.
And I had kind of a number in my head of if we could do this amount in the first year, then I think we'd be fine. And we did more than twice that.
Oh, wow.
And then we did more than twice that number the year after. I mean, it was just
crazy.
Got to the point where we were just overwhelmed. Couldn't handle it on our own anymore. Had to try to bring people in to help us.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to sort through all of those growing pains type things. But
yeah, that's awesome to go. Who would have thought back when you were miserable, when you made your ultimatum to the law firm that now you'd be owning
I mean,
business.
Things happen for a reason, I guess. I mean, it did for me.
That's awesome. Well, I am excited that we I think we just scratched the surface of your story because, like you said, there's so much more. But I think just hearing even just the main like points of someone's story, it kind of helps, as I said, you figure out like, maybe I should take a risk. Maybe I should jump in. Maybe I need to invest in myself. So that's good nuggets.
I'm happy to share. Even more happy to do it here in the M&M Exterior Studios.
Heck yeah. Which is...
very proud to be here for that.
Thank you. I'm glad. And now we have a sign.
Yes.
So before we start the after show, to wrap up our pit stop episode, recommendations. Is there a business book that's been helpful for you?
Not really. I'm not really into those kind of self-help business books. It's not really my deal.
Yeah, screw that.
To be honest. Sorry, it just isn't.
No, that's okay.
I mean,
I am, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean.
Actually, I'm more into discussing them, to tell you the truth. But anyway, I digress.
I'll tell you what's a great nonfiction book, though, that I think everybody should read. What? It's about 20 years old. I read it when I was in college, and he's written books since then.
Okay.
But there's a guy named Gavin DeBecker.
Okay.
He's a security consultant, basically, works with the Secret Service, all these people.
Oh.
And he is an expert in predicting violent behavior.
Okay.
And his book, I think it was his first book, it's called The Gift of Fear. And this kind of plays into a little bit of what we talked about today. The whole key, the underlying premise of the book is we're animals, right?
Okay.
Imagine we're in the jungle, right?
Yes.
Just like any other animal,
yes.
We've got survival instincts.
Yes.
Right?
I've often talked about how I would be willing to kill for my children, but...
Well, okay, fair enough.
Just saying.
But, his was more about avoiding being killed.
Oh,
but,
got it.
You know, his was like when the hair stands up on your neck, or you get a weird feeling about somebody, or you just have this instinct that the situation isn't right. You can't really put your finger on why, but whatever.
Yeah.
You're right. Listen to yourself. Take action to protect yourself. Because your instincts are telling you that there is, and he had a million examples of stories about that. Huh. Most interesting thing, though, about that book, people always talk about these, someone just snapped. They snapped and killed someone or whatever. He said that's not what happens. Never. That's not what happens. There is always a slow, gradual buildup until someone gets to that point. And so his whole thing was about how do we figure out how to stop that. So anyway, it's a timely issue too, I guess.
Now I want to know, and now I need to figure.
But that's a great book. It's one of the best books I've ever read. It's been hugely impactful.
What's the name? The Gift of Fear.
Yeah.
I want to know. How do we know if someone's going to snap?
Well,
I'm going to have to
book.
read it.
Read the book. Yeah.
All right. Read it. And then on the full flush, I'll probably make you tell me at least a few of those nuggets.
TV shows, though. Go.
I'm the one who asks the questions around.
Well, I'll tell you what we're watching right now. Melody and I are watching Mindhunter season 2. It's out on Netflix.
Oh.
Great show. Here I am on Killers again. I know it's not.
I
sound obsessed. That's not what I mean. But it is a great show. It's about the founding of the FBI's serial killer profiling unit.
Yeah.
And it's about these guys who started out just interviewing serial killers, trying to figure out what they had in common and what made them tick and why did they do what they did.
How do they know
and
the
stuff.
Serial killers were telling the truth, though? They could have been lying.
Well, that's one of the problems in the show.
Oh.
Some of them are telling them, they got to sort through who's lying to them, who's telling the truth.
Gosh.
Some of them don't want to talk about it. Some of them are incredibly insightful about it. I mean, it's interesting. It's a great show, though.
Yeah, great stuff. Murderers, killers.
Yeah,
the most common.
Talk about something more.
Well, no,
nicer.
I bet our listeners are loving this because you know what the number one genre of podcast is? True crime.
Yeah.
What am I doing with this whole talking to people thing? We should be talking about crime.
I'll come back for that if you want. We could do that.
You have some true crime podcasts you could talk about?
Well, no,
or you have true crime you could talk about?
I've listened to the Serial podcast. I have an incredibly strong opinion about that happens to be a minority opinion.
Oh, golly. Yeah. Well, I haven't listened to it. So
my friend and I, who agree on almost everything in life, just in general.
You disagree?
100% on this.
Okay, so what's your... Second question... Wrap it up, and then if you want to keep listening to our jibber jabber, you can come over to the after show. Okay.
Sounds good.
Last question is, what conversation do you either want to stop having? So what's being talked about that needs to just zip it? Or what do you want to start talking more about? Anything in life.
Would you like you and me? Or?
No. Well, it could be us together talking.
What do you mean,
or people.
Nationally,
or your own life, or...
Oh.
It could just be whatever comes to your head. It's like psychology with the ink blots. Like, what conversation? I just opened up a book.
What conversation do I think we should be having?
Having or stop having?
I'm just getting angry now.
What was it?
Jeez. Take it easy.
I know, sorry.
Okay. Oh, thanks.
You're not here till the after show.
Okay.
You're
I
not
feel
here.
like I should step in.
Yeah.
You're not. No, you don't have to answer it. If you
Yeah.
don't want
Well,
to.
no, I mean, I've already kind of touched on it. I mean, the identifying violent people, first of all, it can be done.
Oh.
We need to have a better system of doing
dang.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing, and maybe it's because I've been thinking about being a lawyer just this week because I knew we were going to talk about this, but there are a whole bunch of things about the legal system that are huge common misconceptions that I would love to eradicate.
Okay. Well, in the after show, I want to hear about some of those things.
All right, we can get into it.
Very cool. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming. M&M Exteriors, roofing, siding, gutters, for all of your needs in Northern Virginia.
Right here in the M&M Exteriors studios.
Yes. The famous M&M Exteriors with our mascot dog, Hank.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap for now.
Thanks for listening to Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle. Music provided by twinmusicom.org. Song titled Night at the Dance Hall. Sound editing by me, Jeremy Spittle. A special thanks to our studio sponsor, M&M Exteriors. Visit their website at mmexteriors.com for all of your roofing, siding, and gutter needs in the Northern Virginia area. Visit our website at flushingitout.com and be sure to subscribe. This has been a Spitfire production.
That was the greatest thing I've ever heard.